There is a strange kind of tension in the sky over Capricorn today. On one side, Saturn, your own ruler, is pressing down on your home and your closest relationships, asking for something almost mechanical: precision, iron, follow through. On the other side, the moon is drifting through a soft, exposed place, brushing against an old wound tied to creativity and love. Two different planets, two completely different moods, landing on the same Thursday. By the end of this, you will understand why they are not actually opposites. They are the same lesson, wearing two different masks. The bigger picture. Let us start with Saturn, because nothing about your day makes sense without it. In traditional astrology, Saturn has always been linked to iron, cold, heavy, structural. Its old mythological symbol is the scythe, and it is almost eerie how consistent that imagery is. An instrument for cutting things down to size, for harvesting what is ripe and clearing what is not. Right now, Saturn is turning its attention toward your household and your family relationships. Not gently. This is Saturn asking you to stop floating in whatever soft, comfortable illusion you have built at home and start reshaping it with real structure. Think less daydream, more foundation work. At the same time, something much more tender is happening overhead. The moon has drifted into contact with Chiron, the wounded healer, in the part of your chart connected to creativity, romance, and playful self-expression. In psychological astrology, this pairing tends to touch old insecurities, the fear that you are not talented enough, not interesting enough, not enough, without trying hard to prove it. It is a soft ache, not a crisis, but it is there, humming quietly under the day. Here is where it gets genuinely interesting. If you have looked at more than one horoscope today, you may have noticed a contradiction. One source says the moon is in fiery, impatient Aries. Another says it is meeting Chiron in steady, sensual Taurus. That is not an error, it is two entirely different measuring systems disagreeing on purpose. Vedic, or Sidereal, astrology calculates the zodiac roughly 24 degrees earlier than Western Tropical Astrology. So the same moon in the same sky, at the same moment, can technically sit in Aries by one system and Taurus by the other. Vedic tradition reads this Aries moon as agitation goals that feel just out of reach, a flicker of frustration when things do not move as fast as you want. Western Tropical Astrology, watching that same moon settle into Taurus and touch Chiron, sees something different, a tender reopening around love, creativity, and self-worth. Different lens, same underlying moment, restlessness on the surface, vulnerability underneath. That is the real shift today. Not one energy, but two versions of the same emotional weather. Love. This is where the Moon-Chiron contact really shows its hand. You may have noticed a pull toward sentimentality today, a little more emotionally open than usual, maybe even a bit exposed. Resist the urge to shut that down. Western Tropical Astrology frames this Moon-Chiron meeting as an old fear surfacing. The worry that you are not quite charming enough, not quite desirable enough, unless you are performing for it. A psychological reading of this same aspect, occurring in your zone of romance and self-expression, adds another layer. It suggests the fix is not trying harder, it is trying looser. Send the flirty text without editing it 4 times. Suggest the playful idea without pre-approving it in your head first. Here is the part almost nobody mentions about days like this. The temptation is to turn connection into a performance review, silently grading whether you are interesting enough in real time. That is exactly what drains the joy out of it. If you have been the one chasing in a relationship, doing all the emotional heavy lifting, today favors quietly stepping back. Let someone else close the distance for once. And if you have been sitting on a soft, sappy feeling you have not said out loud, this is a fair moment to let it show, without demanding it be reciprocated instantly. Career. Bring the same theme into your work, and something clicks. Saturn's demand for structure at home does not stay contained to the household. It bleeds into how you show up professionally too. You may notice a pull toward being the reliable one at work, the person who tightens loose processes instead of complaining about them. That instinct is worth trusting today. This is not a day for dramatic career leaps. It is a day for quietly proving, brick by brick, that you can be counted on. If a creative or expressive project has been sitting in your professional life, a pitch, a proposal, an idea you have been nervous to share, the same Chiron-tinged vulnerability from your personal life shows up here too. Perfectionism will try to talk you out of sharing it. Do not let it win completely, but do not ignore it either. A useful middle path. Show the rough draft to one trusted colleague, or set yourself a firm deadline instead of endlessly polishing. Guardrails, not paralysis. That is the difference between healthy caution and self-sabotage. Money. Financially, today leans toward restraint rather than restriction. There is little indication of major stress around work or income right now, which gives you rare breathing room to think instead of react. Use it. This is a good day to look honestly at where money has been leaking out through impulse or emotional spending, especially if you have been overcompensating for someone else, buying affection, buying reassurance, buying distraction. Saturn's iron discipline, the same energy asking you to restructure your home life, extends naturally into your wallet. Smarter spending is not about deprivation today. It is about alignment, making sure what you spend actually reflects what you value. Health. Here is the part of today that deserves real attention, not just a passing mention. You have likely spent a long stretch of time as the dependable one, managing everyone else's needs, smoothing everyone else's stress, absorbing tension so others do not have to. That pattern tends to show up physically before it shows up anywhere else. If you have been feeling low energy, easily irritated, or quietly resentful without knowing exactly why, this is worth listening to rather than pushing through. Practically speaking, a few small habits matter more than they seem today. Keeping an eye on reproductive and hormonal health through regular checkups is a reasonable, grounded step rather than something to worry over. Increasing potassium-rich foods, bananas, leafy greens, sweet potatoes, supports the kind of steady energy your body may be asking for right now. Some Vedic practitioners might suggest Saturn-related remedies, such as particular colors, mantras, or gemstones, for people whose birth charts specifically support them. That is not universal advice, and gemstone prescription in Vedic astrology depends entirely on personal chart analysis. It is not something to adopt casually just because you share a sun sign with millions of other people. What is universally safe, though, is simpler. Rest when you are tired, and stop treating self-care as something you earn only after everyone else is taken care of. Take a breath here, because this is the piece worth remembering. Saturn's scythe is not only cutting away illusions in your household, it is asking you to cut away the belief that your own well-being comes last on the list. Home and family. This is where Saturn's iron really lands. If you have felt a nagging sense that home life has been running on autopilot, or that a family relationship has quietly drifted into a comfortable fiction rather than an honest one, that instinct is accurate. Saturn does not do subtlety. It asks for commitment, consistency, and the willingness to have the harder conversation instead of the easier illusion. Think of it like finally repairing a fence you have been stepping around for months instead of fixing not glamorous work, but the kind that actually holds. Here is where two very different traditions end up describing the same moment from opposite directions. The traditional, Saturn-based reading says, stop avoiding, start reshaping, use discipline like a tool. A more evolutionary reading, Looking at the emotional exhaustion you have likely been carrying from caretaking others, says, this is also permission to finally turn some of that same discipline inward. Structure at home, self-structure within yourself, same iron, two different rooms. If jealousy or tension has crept into a close relationship recently, open, plain conversation works far better today than silent assumption. Saturn rewards direct communication. It punishes avoidance. Travel and spirit. Travel themes today point toward somewhere warm, social, and a little indulgent, the kind of place that invites you to loosen your grip rather than tighten it. Barcelona has come up as a particularly resonant destination in some readings today, and whether or not that is literally on your calendar, the underlying craving is worth noticing. A pull toward beauty, spontaneity, and sensory pleasure after a long stretch of duty and responsibility. Spiritually, this is a fitting moment to sit with the idea that discipline and softness are not enemies. Saturn built the structure. The tender Moon-Chiron energy is what gets to live inside it once the structure is sound. Picture an old, sturdy house, walls repaired, roof solid, and then, finally, someone opens the windows and lets warm air move through the rooms. That is roughly the shape of your day. Lucky signs. If you are looking for a small anchor today, golden yellow is a supportive color to wear, especially if you are feeling emotionally unsettled or short-tempered. The window between 6:30 and 8 in the evening carries a noticeably lighter, more contented energy than earlier hours. You will likely find the most emotional ease around people who do not ask you to perform. Steady, undramatic company suits you far better today than anyone who raises the emotional stakes. Tay's guidance. So here is where the two energies from the very start of today finally meet. Saturn is asking you to stop avoiding the harder, more honest version of your home life. The tender Moon-Chiron energy is asking you to stop editing yourself out of your own joy. Both are really the same instruction, said two different ways. Stop performing, start being real, whether that is with a parent, a partner, or yourself in the mirror. You do not need to fix everything today. Pick one honest conversation at home, one unedited message to someone you care about, one small act of self-care you would normally skip. That is enough. Saturn does not need grand gestures. It rewards consistency. And the tenderness sitting underneath today's sky does not need an audience either. It just needs you to stop grading yourself long enough to feel it. That is really the whole story of your Thursday, Capricorn. Iron on the outside, softness underneath. Handle both honestly, and you will notice this day did more quiet work on you than it first seemed to.